David inquired of Jah, saying, "Shall I go up against the Philistines, and will you deliver them into my hand?" And the Lord says unto him, "Go up, for I will deliver them into your hand." Ras Reports. Greetings, welcome to Ras Reporting, ahead of the time, one stone at a time. Few things in the news. You got a situation they just mentioned about drones going to take pictures of those wildfires out in California. What I've seen recently is that they've been allowing certain commercial drones. They're trying to slowly, feed this industry into our economy, and really only permit the people that are an advantage to them. And when I say them, I mean the international shareholders that own these super entities that control the entire supply chain of our economy. These are the ones that are going to allow, through the government, of course, because if they control the United Nations, they certainly control our federal government. And we're seeing plenty of examples we'll be getting into of how they control the United Nations. So they're definitely going to allow the regulations to keep basically private individuals from using drones to go spy on wealthy individuals. That's where they're going to draw the line. Other than that, geez, anybody can have a drone, and if a drone comes into your yard, like drones have come into my yard, nobody knows anything. Oh, we didn't see it, we don't know where it came from, and it becomes a big mystery. So if you have the ability, shoot that drone as soon as you see it, and I'll give you a reason why. Right now the technology has become so good. We have this group like ISIS that was funded by the Western intelligence, the oil barons and all them, and they've grown into what we've seen now with children cutting people's heads and holding them in a picture for a camera. There is no reason why the same group, or at least the same organization, the same network, cannot hire somebody to operate a drone to come and get you next. And you say, well, I haven't done anything wrong. Well, neither did those innocent people in Iraq and Syria. The followers of the Christ, the priests, they didn't do anything wrong either. But what did they get? So it's better to be safe than sorry. And if you have the ability to, by all means, take that drone out. Because you want to do it now and ask questions later. They reported that there's been a low yields in commercial fishing around Florida, so that what they've had to do is find the hot spots, the warm spots, so to speak, that the fish flock to, and then direct those commercial fishers towards those spots. Now this is interesting because they reported this phenomenon as a result of the extreme cold weather last year. Well, there may have been some extreme cold weather in other areas of the globe, but not here in Florida. So possibly they're saying the fish froze in other areas and there wasn't enough fish to repopulate and come down here. Well, that's a problem. We need to find out if that's true. And if it's true, we need to eliminate fossil fuels. Because, you know, it's one thing if you're driving around, you got a new Benz, 500, 600, whatever, and you're feeling real good about yourself, right? You put some gas in that thing, you step on the pedal, you take off of that light or whatever, you know, you got a couple people looking at you, you think you're the Mac Dad. That's one thing, that's cool. But try doing that on an empty stomach. Or try doing that while you're thirsty. And see how cool it is. I guarantee you won't give a shit about that BMW or those girls looking at you or anything. All you're going to be thinking about is getting some food in your belly or getting some water to drink. So how we can have an environment, a world where we don't have the adequate nutrition to survive, but yet we got all these luxuries, you know, Google glasses and you know, flying spaceships and all these things. So again, people need to really, you know, when I see people say the protesting's not doing anything and we need to take another approach, what is it? What is it, man? Because my only approach is for every single person to get in the street and protest this environmental damage that's been done and do anything, everything necessary to make sure that something happens. That's my idea of changing the situation. And I'm talking about everybody. If you ain't out on the street, then you're a part of the problem. You don't deserve to be alive on this face of this earth, man. Because you are destroying everything we've ever had in creation. I have no love for you. They talking about, you know, people may be in the future interested in a race change, having surgery to change their race. I mean, what kind of confusion is Babylon up to now? It's like, it seems to never end. And by the way, that's interesting because that new plastic surgery, that is their new luxury. You have to understand now, the pyramid scheme, where you have to go through layers and layers and layers to get to the top of the tower, what they do is they always pull people up. They try to get people to aspire to move up. They don't pull people up. They want people to pull themselves up, but at everyone at the bottom's expense. And they do it by having them chase plastic carrot around in circles. And the plastic carrot is that plastic surgery. That's one of the new luxuries that people are aspiring to have because everybody wants them better themselves, make their lives better and this and that, as if anybody's going to remember them down the line. If anybody's going to, I mean, it's beyond me how we are so self-centered when it only takes 100 or a couple hundred years and everybody's forgotten. Who do we remember from 300 or 400 years ago? Who do you remember from 300 or 400 years ago? I mean, we can go through the Bible, we can come up with a handful of people, but how many of those people will live on today? The Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates? Are you serious? Nobody's going to be thinking about Bill Gates in 200 years. He might have some memorial somewhere, but again, everybody's going to, who's that? And then once people realize, hey, this is the guy that used the NSA taxpayer contractor money underneath everybody's back in order to be able to achieve the so-called status, then people are going to go spit on his grave. You know, this is interesting with this Tea Party. I have to admit, there are things of the Tea Party that I agree with. And that's interesting that you have to think about that for a minute. So this Tea Party is just like the Islamic State, right? Where it had a purpose, and the purpose was to abolish the Fed. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. But we won't get into that in this part. The purpose was to abolish the Fed. But what happened when they got infiltrated by politics and big money, big business, to try to transform this group into some sort of a racist, you know, white supremacist group? Because they wanted to give them a really, really naughty, rotten image. A really rotten image. And they did that. And they continued to do that. And they used this group now to boost the president's image. Like, for instance, with the Joe Obama campaign, when he came up with that, and they all said, no, we don't want this. Everybody said, well, it must be a great deal if this group is really going crazy about it, and they still are. So everybody still thinks, well, it might be a good deal, but these are the insurance companies. You have to understand how capital is working right now. The corporations are sitting on globs of globs, $5 trillion as of 2011 in capital. They have more capital than the federal government. They have more capital than the state governments. And they're not doing much with it, but they're forming these illusions. They're paying the media to put thoughts into people's minds. And then they pay the media to follow people, to trace people around, to see if the thoughts they're putting in people's minds are working. Mr. T just got called for jury duty. They made a big announcement on the radio. And Mr. T said, I pity the criminals on this day. That's what he said before he went to jury duty. Now, do you think that's legal? First of all, why are we announcing Mr. T going into jury duty? Has anybody ever else gone into jury duty? Why is Mr. T special? Maybe because he's black? And then the fact that he says, I pity the criminals today, is another way for them to use these house Negroes in order for people to feel like there's some kind of a justice and this is okay and this is acceptable. Well, coming from somebody who's lived in Hollywood with all that mix-up all these years, of course it's going to be acceptable. These people only want more. They're like Don King. They're willing to take anybody else down around them any way they can in order for them to get